And so have a safe atmosphere to try a lot of those ideas, develop those themes, create those moments, then you leave the space inside that okay, you watch Prince. He'll go on the one, boom, he'll bring it down. Then he'll start something. But on a night when the audience is absolutely magical, it's like this magical thing. He'll let that go on for a while.
Yeah.
Then he'll bring it down. But they have their cues. They know that there's space in this to develop, and he's in charge.
Yeah.
And this is where artists really blow it, because people like Prince, people like Bono, people go to see people. They don't go to hear songs.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of the things I'm working with Taylor on. It's because she has got, love her or hate her, doesn't matter. She is a great songwriter. I'm impressed with her songwriting. And what is important is being able to inject her personality into the show.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if she's just singing songs and the songs don't allow that because they're wordy or something, then what do we have?
Mm-hmm.
We just have a song. Anybody could sing by a pretty girl. But what Prince and Bono and all these people do is they have an authority, what we might call that it or charisma. And people respond. When Bono talks, it's like, oh my gosh, Bono. I mean, really like the fourth person of the Trinity to some people. And why is it? Is it because he's a great singer? Because technically he does this right? Because no. It all comes down to authority. And if you will look at that authority comes from a couple places. But one of those places is leaving space in the songs for that authority.
Mm-hmm.
And most artists don't.
Well, you mentioned U2 and Bono and kind of the idea going back to where we started with planning moments. I'm a big U2 fan, so I've watched a lot of their concert footage because I think some of their concerts really have some magical moments, and it's like, what are these guys doing? I mean, they're not that great musically as far as like individually. They're not at the top of their class for their instrument, and he's definitely not the world's best vocalist. And after watching so much footage, you see that, there are these moments that happen in every show. At the end of this one song, I forget which one it was, he acts like a bull and goes after the edge, and everybody loves it. And it's these moments like that are there every time. But there's also, as you see more shows, where they know those moments are there, but then take some freedom around them.
Exactly.
And plan and just express themselves. And it just allows them the opportunity to, have a consistent show, but at the same time show their personality. And when I was on tour, after, we worked with you and then we started getting on bigger tours of our own headlining, the one thing I really realized why those moments were important and knowing what's happening and what your role is that as you get bigger or more successful with the live show, the stakes get higher. People expect certain things. And you can't be just, if you want to communicate well live, you just can't be winging it, like you said. It's kind of like, I know these things will happen, so I don't have to think about that. I don't have to think about some of the technical issues that might happen. I know what I need to do, and then we can just have fun around that.
Exactly. You know what? Some people are going to reject is probably not the right word here, but my analogy would be like a football play. If I'm doing a football play, think about it. Players go into spring training or whatever you call it before the season starts, right?
Mm-hmm.
They get a playbook. They study the plays. And I don't have any idea what the play would be called, but we'll call it B25C. And they run a play off right tackle. And there's blocking schemes for everybody on the team. Everybody knows their role, like you said. But when they rehearse it, practice it over and over and over and over and over again, so that they don't have to think about it. Mm-hmm. Then when the play comes in the real situation, they're not going, now what do I have to do? They don't pull out the playbook. They're not winging it. They're not going, hey, well, just when you're a kid, you used to go draw on the ground and go, okay, you go long and but there's blocking schemes, there's routes to be run, there's stuff like that. Yet, when the ball's handed off, every time it's spontaneous too. Mm-hmm. So it's planned, but it's spontaneous. Because if that hole closes, the running back uses his talent to whether he puts his head down to get 3 yards or he turns around and runs the other way like a Barry Sanders or a Ladainian Tomlinson. That's where the talent comes out. We have the plan, but we also have the spontaneity in it.
Yeah.
And that's the beautiful part about being on stage. We have a plan. We know what we're trying to accomplish with this song, yet at the same time we leave room for spontaneity. And if it works, now we develop what you just said earlier, a consistency that makes you a professional instead of an amateur.
Yeah, and I think that really helps no matter what level you're playing at, whether
Totally.
you're playing local clubs, whether you're playing weddings or any situation, no matter what level you're at, there's always things get thrown at you that can easily ruin your game and take you out, just shatter your mental concentration. And if you're trying to figure out what you have to do throughout your performance, those things will really just be devastating to your performance. There's always technical issues. There's always somebody doing something in the crowd that's distracting. Something always breaks. And if you are still trying to figure out what it is I have to do in the first place, it's really going to be devastating to your show. But if you know what you're going to do and you're comfortable, you've practiced it, when those things come, you can handle the mental challenge and it not affect your performance.
Yeah, here's a general rule of thumb. If you're thinking on stage, you're not going to be spontaneous.
Yeah.
Truly.
Yeah.
No, you don't ever see anybody thinking up there. It's happening. You're in the flow. You're in your groove.
And I know a lot of the artists that listen to this are probably would fall under the pop rock umbrella, or they're a band or they're a group that puts on shows. But what about like the solo instrumentalist, the piano player, the acoustic singer-songwriter, or the jazz musician? We have a lot of those people that listen to the show as well. And I think sometimes they think this information only applies to bands and artists as groups, but it applies to them as well.
The answer is yes, absolutely. Here's another, I always use sports or food analogies, and some I shouldn't, but we won't go there today. It's like basketball. We know what basketball has: 5 players on the court, it's full court, there's rules. Well, let's say there's not enough people. Let's say you got to play a half-court game. Is basketball still the same game? Do you use the same skill set? And the answer is yes. But we have to know how to adjust. We're not in a half-court game. It's a little bit different. So as a singer-songwriter, we're still trying to create those moments. We're still, technically speaking, one of the things I say, whether it's a band, whether it's a vocalist, it doesn't matter. I'll always ask somebody, do your songs all sound the same? They go, no, and they never know. This one's about this, and I change guitars in this, and I'll brighten the tone on this, and I'll use a pedal. So okay, so your songs don't sound the same. No, I said, then why do they all look the same? And it's totally dead silent.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because they do. I haven't seen the people I'm talking to right now, but I guarantee you that after 2 songs, maybe 3. I've seen the entire show. I haven't heard it, but I've seen it. And so the question is, how do we, without getting cheesy, without getting goofy, what is it? It's like back to football, running the same 2 or 3 plays over and over. After a while, boring. Mm-hmm. As an audience, first of all. Not only that, you'll lose the game because you'd be a dream team for a defensive coordinator to adjust to. It's like, hey, I think I got them figured out.
Yeah.
So conceptually, you have to do the same things that you would do with the band conceptually. Changing pressure on an audience, using the tools on stage. There's technical things, there's musical things, there's verbal things that need to be developed just with a piano player by himself, or a singer-songwriter, or somebody who's a soloist or a duet. The things are just subtler. Mm-hmm. It's just a subtle thing, and subtle things will make a difference because, generally speaking, they're playing in venues where it's not as loud, it's not as bombastic as a band, but conceptually they're exactly the same. Mm-hmm. And here's the dilemma, in that most artists have never learned what those things are, because we're back to the very first question you asked, which is, what are the biggest mistakes?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the assumption that somehow you're supposed to know all this stuff magically. Because, heck, I'm a band, I'm a singer, I'm a whatever, insert whatever you are. I'm supposed to know these things, or I do know those things. That's even more dangerous.
Yeah.
But
well,
listen, I'm working with people that sell millions and millions and millions of records, managers who worked with artists, and they don't know those things.
Yeah. What are some of those ideas that you maybe have worked with when dealing with like a solo singer-songwriter or instrumentalist or something like that? Are there any specifics that could get people started in the right direction of just how to think about it, as opposed to, not necessarily the do this at this point in the song or do that, but just even how to approach it and look at themselves?
Well, first of all, this is virtually for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Where do we develop these moments? First of all, you got to look at your song. You know what? Let me deal with the 4 areas.
Okay.
Let me deal with 4 areas that I really work with an artist on. One is the personal skills. And a lot of people go, I don't need that. Well, so many people do it. I mentioned earlier about Bono. How do you develop this authority? How do you develop this attitude of, having the courage or the faith to take those chances on stage or in rehearsal? How do you develop confidence? Because I do 2 or 3 workshops a year, and when the people sign up, I send out a little thing saying, so what do you want to learn from this? And by far, the most important one is I want to be more confident on stage.
Mm-hmm.
Well, confidence comes in many ways, but through preparation, through the inside out, that's part of the workshop. Part of what I teach. But the idea here is your personal skills. And these are the things that an audience actually relates to. Not the musical things, the personal things. In fact, have you ever seen somebody on stage that is so nervous or not in control, it's kind of like, you start almost like praying for them. Yeah.
I think I've been that person before.
Yeah. But why? Why? It's because they're making you so uncomfortable sitting in the audience, you're actually praying for yourself that they would get it together and take control, because you know your role in the audience, but they don't know their role on stage.
Yeah.
So first thing I deal with is personal skills. Second thing I deal with is the planning skills. It's like, okay, let's lay the form out here. Let's look at, as I'm sitting here right now, I'm starting rehearsal on Taylor's show in 2 weeks. And I've got her stuff on my iPod, on my iTunes. I got it in various places. And what I do is I lay out, literally, I have a map. I talked earlier about a graph that I've got. I've got a map of the show that obviously has adjustments in it. And I'm listening to songs a million different ways, trying to plan this stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to plan. I said earlier, your songs don't sound the same. They shouldn't look the same. Well, what kind of plan do we have? Do we know that if I ask many guitar players, or doesn't matter, soloists too, if I told you to walk over to this place or here it is, singer-songwriter, sit on a stool and sing the song instead of stand behind your mic, standing. If I told you to do that and it would sell 5 more CDs that night, would you do it? Every one of them are like, yeah. Well, how many of you are changing what I call the pressure on the audience? We've got to plan what we're going to do on stage. Not exactly, but we've got to understand the concepts and go, you know what, during this song, I should probably stretch the stage. During this part, I should if you understand the concepts, you're planning that stuff. So that's what I do. That's the second thing, is the planning.
Mm-hmm.
What are we going to say? We're going to set this up with a story. We work on transitions. So, planning. The third thing is technical skills. Literally on stage, there are things you can do that will help connect you to an audience. Because really what we're talking about here is communication. Communication's 15% content. This always freaks singers out, or singer-songwriters, actually. It's the words you sing. Only 15% of it is communication from stage. 30% is the tone or the emotion. You bring something with you. Ever heard a passionate singer, like a Bono, a Springsteen, whoever, and you're like, yeah! But you can't really hear the words. You're just caught up in the emotion. You're like, yeah, I believe that. What are they saying?
Yeah.
But you're just agreeing with them emotionally. 55% of communication is what the audience sees with their eyes. So if they're seeing the same thing over and over and over, they're going to start checking out after 2 or 3 songs.
Mm-hmm.
So we have technical skills we work on. Literally movement on stage, placement on stage, angles on stage, all kinds of technical things. Just like, I mean, think about it. Back to sports. You ever seen rehearsal, practice for football? Blows my mind. I watch these guys running in tires. And first time I saw it, I thought, man, I've never seen a game where there's tires on the field. So what are they doing with those tires? There's technical things, agility things that those tires help accomplish so that when they go out and play the game, they've developed them. So there are technical things that need to be developed. And it's not boxing somebody in. That's like saying, because I learned, 10 chords instead of 5, I'm now, boxed in by those 10 chords. No. The whole idea of technical things is so that you can express yourself, musically, verbally, and visually. So the third thing is technical skills, and the fourth thing is it's the creative skills. It's knowing how to look at those songs in a different way and developing those. And this is what you were asking. This is a long way to get to that question.
That's all right.
But when I look at a song, there are certain places in the song that generally, now this is a general rule, this is not in stone, but if I got a day to make a difference with somebody, these are the places I'll look. As a singer-songwriter, as a band. On our CD, our intro is usually short. Why? Because we've recorded it for radio. In fact, I got one song that I'm working with Taylor on that there is virtually no intro.
Mm-hmm.
Bam! First word. Why? Because that's the way it is on radio. There's attention span. It's a different environment. Live, that thing is a minute, 20-second development of an intro.
Mm-hmm.
Because that is a place, and it's exactly what it is, folks, an intro. It's a place to gather people up in the audience and say, okay, everybody with me, everybody with me, everybody with me. Here's what I'm going to say. Now we go into the song. And how do we do that? We do that creatively. So that's one thing that I look at all the time is the intros. I look at bridges to be developed. I look at solos to be developed. I look at outros to be developed, musically, verbally, and visually. So you can do that as a band. You can do that as a singer-songwriter sitting behind a piano. So those are the areas that I'll work on to, and if people understand conceptually those things, and start looking at their songs a little bit differently instead of just singing songs and hoping they connect, I think we're headed the right way.
Yeah, and the benefit is that, artists, they actually consider these things. It's not like they have to go revolutionize their show overnight, but they can start adding these little elements, and they will see a dramatic difference in the response.
Well, yeah, if we want to get crass, not just a response, and this is not bragging, this is just reality.
Yeah.
If you start creating these moments, your revenue will jump. It'll just jump.
Yeah.
I could tell you multiple fronts of people, from people who are just playing clubs, small acoustic clubs, to, again, Taylor, whose revenue just jumped through the roof by creating moments instead of singing songs, because people want to go relive that moment when they go back to the merch table.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't create those moments, or it happens by accident, then you're going to just scratch your head and wonder, gee, why ain't this working? Or it's working just enough to keep you going.
Yeah.
Which is frustrating.
Well, I know you have a lot of resources, and you've got a website that's TomJacksonProductions.com. What kind of resources do you have available to artists? Because we've just scratched the surface on some of the stuff that you have that if artists can really chew on and take the time to go through it.
Well, I don't know what day this is going to be airing or when you're going to put this up, but what I have right now is I just finished a 17-class DVD set of my workshop. My workshops I do, like I said, a couple times a year. Actually, the workshop that is on DVD, I probably will do it every other year because it's pretty darn in depth.
Mm-hmm.
But I got 17 classes on 70. It's about 10 hours of material. And you mentioned earlier Prince. One of the classes is taught by Des from Prince. He's teaching a class on the DVD set. Anyway, so I've got 7 DVD set. You can buy them individually. You can buy them, as a set. Great content in there. I've got. I'm literally in the process right now of creating something specifically for bands. One of the things that people really like to see is when I do a hands-on makeover with an artist and they can see the process.
Mm-hmm.
I can't put the entire process on because it would just be forever.
Yeah.
but we're in the process of putting together a workshop. Actually, I just finished one for workshop for bands. It's just a 1 DVD thing. And then I'm working with Acoustic Act on one DVD makeover and a rock band on another one. And that should be coming out here in the next 2 months.
Well, that sounds interesting. That one sounds really good.
Yeah, that's good. And on the first one, though, which is for solo singers, I'm not that it's only for solo singers. I've got a kind of a makeover. I took a song and we've done a quick makeover with a girl and one of her songs, and you can see the process there, the technical things, the musical things. So that's part of the first one too. And then I've got, as you know, I've worked in the gospel industry for many years, so I've got some specific products for gospel artists too. I'm trying to get these all done. In the meantime, speaking 30, 40 times around the world while working with all these artists and being a dad.
Yeah, it's a busy schedule.
Yeah, there's nothing else to do.
Well, we appreciate you taking time out of your day to be on the show. I know that you'll probably be getting a lot of artists heading over to your site. I know that even though it's been a few years back since we've worked together, those concepts that I've learned going through the process with you still go through my mind all the time when I'm working on a musical performance with a group or on my own. And so definitely encourage the artists, all our listeners, to check it out. So I appreciate you coming on the show.
My pleasure.
Well, that's going to bring us to the end of another episode. I'm sure Tom gave you a lot to think about, and as I mentioned at the top of the podcast, we're interested in hearing comments from those of you using Twitter, but I also wanted to hear feedback about your live performances, things that you're doing that seem to be working, or things that were just a total disaster. Or if you just have a question, that's acceptable as well. So our listener line is 206-426-5683. Our email is info@cdbabypodcast.com. And you can always leave a comment under the show notes for this episode at the website, which is cdbabypodcast.com. We're looking forward to hearing from you, and we'll see you next time. You've been listening to the CD Baby DIY Musician Podcast, broadcasting from Portland, Oregon, USA.